challenges are just the universe's way of asking if it's really what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like fuel to keep pushing forward. Growing up with this idea of like, having a Navajo accent meant that you were uneducated or you
Sure.
should be out in the city. Rejecting that traditional way of life was the only way to find success.
Fritz Bitsoie is an Emmy-Award nominated Diné Navajo filmmaker based in Los Angeles. He's a film geek at heart who loves to incorporate elements from genre films to focus on stories that explore themes of cultural significance within Native American experience. I had a wonderful conversation with Fritz, guys. Please take a look. I hope you guys enjoy. What would you define the modern Native American experience as? And B, how do you want to capture it? I know the
Mm.
first of the two questions might be is a very like dense one, but I guess in your own words and to the best of your abilities.
Yeah, I'd say the modern Native American experience is um it involves it involves, well, when I grew up, uh, like Native Americans in films, this is after like the John Ford films with American Indians on horseback and
Sure.
whooping and bow and arrows and stuff you would see in Hollywood films. There was films like Smoke Signals and Powwow Highway, um, or Last of the Mohicans, that kind of stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
there was it was starting to turn into more into these stories of like fish out of water type stories where it's like, oh, native guy leaves the reservation and is now living in a city, and let's see how he handles that. Or also there's a reverse of that of like, oh, there's a native guy returning back to his homeland trying to rediscover who he is and all that. um and I think those stories were kind of the films or books that I grew up reading a lot about. And I think now there's the modern experience is like, I mean, I kind of have to unpack it a little bit, but basically when I was growing up, my parents were both put through the boarding schools, which means like when they're children, they're taken from their parents and placed into these government boarding schools in which
Wow.
their hair was cut off, they were
And
taught English.
this
Or
is forcefully, right? They didn't have a
yeah,
choice.
this is forcefully. Yeah, I didn't have a choice,
Uh,
and they were put through these schools to assimilate them. Like let's cut their hair, teach them English, teach them religion, and you know bring civilization to them,
sure.
whatever that means. Um, and then when they graduated high school, they were given like a little stipend. They put on a bus, and they were sent to bigger cities to become part of, to become
To kind of like,
law-abiding
with
citizens.
quotations, like further assimilate, was that
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah. And
mindset?
um, so both my parents, they ended up in Dallas in Texas, and that's where they met. And they they there's these fun stories about how my dad was like in a country band, like my mom
Whoa.
was. She was learning to be an administrative assistant, like typing and stuff. Basically, my parents met in Dallas, Texas. After getting out of the boarding schools, and
Mhm.
they started a family, and I'm the youngest of five. And
Wow.
by the time I was born, they had moved back to the Navajo Nation, and where my dad was working for this gas company. And so I grew up in a home where Navajo was spoken a lot of the time between my parents and how they spoke to us. But at the same time, um, when my dad answered the phone, he had this like telephone voice. He'd always say like, "This is Freddie." We always kind of like
Yeah.
laugh about him. It had this kind of like, he didn't have an accent or anything. Um,
Sure.
and so I think there was just that 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 environment that I grew up in where my family really valued education. They valued, um, the idea of all of us pursuing college, or just kind of being open to what the world had to offer.
Yeah.
I think something I really thank my parents for is they were very open about faith and religion. Um,
Hmm.
they didn't really pressure me to be only traditional.
Yeah.
I did have a traditional upbringing, meaning like, a lot of the Navajo philosophies and ceremonies and that kind of thing was, I don't want to say that kind of thing, 'cause that kind of discounts it, but the traditional way of life, of the teachings and of the philosophies, that's something I was always taught was the
Sure.
most important, and the language too. But it was always tricky because, um, by then the effect of assimilation and the attitude was already kind of planted, meaning
Mm-hmm.
that many many of my peers or like my older siblings, um, a lot of their friends, they were growing up with this idea of like, having a Navajo accent meant that you were uneducated,
Mm.
or living on the reservation and you herd sheep was like an inferior way of living, that you
Sure.
should be out in the city, you know, um, you know, getting off the res,
Mm-hmm.
and and rejecting that traditional way of life, was the only way to find success. And what I'm seeing now, which is beautiful, is that a lot of kids, in the younger generation and also like Gen Z, they're realizing the fragility of like our culture, and like the fact that the languages are disappearing, and things like ancestry.com and stuff, people are discovering that they have, indigenous roots. People are starting to like, a lot of the younger generation are seeing the value in learning the language and wanting to preserve this kind of way of life.
Oh yeah.
Um, and so it's caught in, so there still is this state of limbo that, um, I think a lot of Native American youth have. Um, but it's all from this place of like wanting to, um, I don't want to say like preserve, or, what's the word I'm looking for, where they want to cultivate,
Yeah.
um, what they have. And I think when I go into these stories of the modern Native American, it's it comes from a place of like going to reservations or going to communities and seeing seeing the and focusing on like the positive aspects of their stories. It's not going in and saying like, oh, we're gonna make a film about, all the trauma porn, or we're
Yeah.
gonna go out there and we're gonna show like poverty and all this stuff, and show how hard it is for these people to make a life, and, to say something like, oh man,
Uh-huh.
this, you've been through so much, it must have been so hard for you. Like,
Sure.
that to me is not kind of the films I want to make. I'd much rather go in there and, see what people see, and,
Yeah.
um, see their lives from their perspectives, and give them the opportunity to tell their stories in their own way.
Yeah, and
Um,
one thing I wanted to add to that too, right? Like it definitely must be so easy to like trauma dump from the perspective of like a modern day Native American. But I was watching what you did through this storm, and like every good story, it needs conflict. But your conflict was like more of like a global conflict, like something that not from these not from these individuals, being Native American, but from the fact that, hey, this kid got into an accident and he's learning how to rehabilitate his leg, or hey, this father lost a son. So just adding general conflict. So I get exactly what you're saying with the types of conflict you're trying to add, while trying to avoid the trauma dumping.
yeah, absolutely, man. I think growing up, there's a lot of native docs or films, Native Americans, is like there's a lot of romanticizing of the cultures, or romanticizing of the peoples, and I think in a
Mm.
way that ends up othering the people. You put them behind a glass
Yeah,
case or whatever, and it's hard to see them as just, everyday people like you and me.
exactly.
And so I've always enjoyed, putting these little Easter eggs in the films. I think for, Through the Storm, we try to, film the Red Lake Nation as this really beautiful place. We
Hmm.
didn't show
In
any of
Minnesota,
the,
right?
yeah, in Minnesota. and the people were so cool. Like they were so kind once we introduced ourselves and we let them know the kind of film we were trying to make. Everyone
Hmm.
was so welcoming, and um, I, I I always wanted to make a film of like where if somebody sees this film who's from Red Lake, that they would know that I wasn't out to like make fun of them,
Yeah.
you know, and that I really wanted to make something that felt authentic to their story.
Or to
But
like make, or to like pity them. Like the could
yeah,
have easily, like, you just wanted to properly capture the story. Period.
yeah, yeah, and and so to me, I want to make films that are universal, that have this universal appeal to a mass
Yeah.
audience. Um, but then also put in these little Easter eggs that might resonate with people from these communities.
100%.
So that when somebody from Red Lake watches this film, they might be like, "Oh yeah, that's who we are."
Right.
Hopefully that's what comes across.
Yeah,
So
and again, like you being Native American, you have the best understanding of this experience. Like obviously it varies from, tribe to tribe, but there's also a general experience that a lot of Native Americans share. So you as a director, you have both options of adding those Easter eggs and creating things that everyone can relate to. Like I did, the fact that this like ragtag group of kids went to play football against like these like more bigger, intimidating opponents made me think of
mhm.
me playing basketball, like AAU basketball, of me like all the scrawny guys getting ready to just get our asses kicked by these like huge, domineering opponents.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I think I think that was also something that we were aware of when we were filming. Like there's just one team. I mean, they only had enough players to play both sides, and
Yeah.
they had the other team come out, and they even had like a second and a third string. And while they were playing, like these guys were getting beat up like bad, and
You showed
we
that,
had like
yeah.
yeah, and it was, and we had like
Uh,
you know Leo Mako, our DP,
mhm.
fantastic cinematographer. He
Sure.
we had him out there with an easy rig, and he had the whole RE kit and all that. And
Cool.
people out there don't, there's they just see a film camera, and and
Yeah.
and, and it's like we're there trying to make our footprint as small as possible,
Yeah.
and but still we're sticking out, and this team is getting beat up bad, and we're filming it, and I felt terrible. I thought like, oh shit, are people thinking we're there just to make fun of them? And so there was times during the game where we just had to say cut, and
Yeah.
and then we let the game play, and then I went around and I met all the people in the stands. Like I would just go around, and anybody who was looking at us, I'd go over and say, "Hey, what's up? This is who we are. This is the kind of film we're trying to make. We're not when we're and a lot of them were like, yeah, you guys just came out because you guys know that we haven't won a game in over 20 years, and
Yeah.
they thought that we were um there was just a lot of hesitation about um you know there was I had to ensure that we were there on good terms with everybody to
Sure.
to let them know that that I really wanted to make something that really
Yeah.
celebrates the community, about the fact that these kids keep showing up no matter what.
It
That
was so cool the way you celebrated that community, like showing the people who showed up and who they were and how much they cared.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. A lot of credit goes to Charles Frank, to our co-director. He found the story, he built a lot of these relationships, and when he invited me to come onto the project, I knew that he was approaching it from from a place that I was very much in alignment with, in how we wanted to treat the subject. And
Yeah.
even though I'm a Native American guy, like I can't go to another community and say, "Hey, dude, I'm Native just like you." Like
Yeah.
I still have to ensure that like I'm there to learn, you know,
Sure.
and I'm there in a state of like just learning. I'm not trying to tell them what's right or wrong or anything like that. And I think going to a community like that and they ask me where I'm from, and I say like currently I've been living in California, like LA for a while, but I'm from this is my hometown. I think that goes a long way too.
Gallup.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that goes a long way because I think people see that, I grew up in a small town and a lot of those mannerisms and a lot of the um like a lot of that attitude of appreciating
They
like
know you get it. They know you have that
yeah,
empathy. Like
yeah,
they know you've
yeah,
been through, they know you've lived this like you've had a similar upbringing. You
totally.
know, and
And I
like
think that goes
some of
a
this
really
small
long
town
way.
stuff, like I saw a dude like getting people water and just having a cigarette in his mouth. Like
Yeah,
those little things too, you
yeah,
know, those are pretty cool.
yeah, yeah. And it's great to be able to get that trust into that level. So that definitely comes in handy when I don't know. That's definitely I would say a strength of mine that when I go into it's a quality that I um that makes me really appreciate coming from a small town when I go
Oh
into these
yeah.
kind of projects.
Well, you're also going in, you know, not putting yourself above everything. You said you were there to ask questions and learn more to, you know, better capture the subject matter and deliver an authentic result. I mean, that's probably, I mean, that quality is shared by really good directors, right? They put the piece or the person they're reporting on above everything else. That's what matters most, developing that
Yeah.
trust.
It also it's also important for me to acknowledge that like in the end I'm making a product. A lot of my films are brand films and
Yeah.
there is some high level checklist of footage to get. There are some narrative beats to cover.
Hmm.
There are people investing in this film who are hoping to um achieve a certain kind of message.
Yeah.
And those are all things that's like a that's it's like a tightrope the entire way. But I don't know. I think that's kind of that's where it's fun for me.
Yeah.
Like I'd much rather see opportunities than challenges. And I think cinema and the visual language of cinema is it allows you all these fun tricks to play with blocking, to play with like framing and even audio design in order um to convey more than just just the act of somebody sitting down drinking tea.
Yeah.
Like you can block that or you can approach that visually in a way to show that they're dreading something
Uh-huh.
or that they're celebrating something or maybe even what you follow it what you're cutting to after that you can have it lead. I don't know, you can
There's so
if
many
if
options,
yeah, so many options
possibilities,
and
combinations.
yeah, and when brands, are interested in doing a film about a football team, it's like, yeah, it's a football team, and they haven't won a game in 20 years, but I'm also seeing opportunities of like, man, as a native guy myself, we're losing our language, we're constantly fighting for like, people say land back all the time, like
Hmm.
we're fighting pipelines, deforestation, like even even some of us are losing like even some of us are even fighting just to get federally recognized. Like
Yeah.
there's like an uphill battle every day and not a lot of wins. And this film Through the Storm can also reflect that it's like it's
Yeah.
not about winning, it's about still showing up the fight anyway.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to be able to see how many layers you can like really put into a film to make it just beyond just a football film.
Yeah.
So that
And,
the audiences who want to see a football film, yeah, they get that. They can totally enjoy it from that perspective. But I also hopefully can put something in there too that,
yeah. Like
might,
layers of meaning.
yeah, yeah. Because it's like, why not really shoot for the moon? You know,
Yeah.
um, I remember like when I was first getting into making films, like my wife, when we went to Rome for
Oh,
a
actually,
holiday.
before you talk about that, I wanted to just add to your previous point. Like it's there's this one line. It's like you got to learn. Like the coach said, you got to learn how to lose, and
Hmm.
that really stuck with me because like the father lost his son, and now this team they all lose nonstop, and it's also part of the short documentary that it was. It was a process of learning how to lose and how much beauty there is to it and how much reward there is to reap from actually losing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of wisdom in that in that phrase, learning to lose. Because I
Yeah.
think that I think it relates to a lot about cultivating gratitude,
Uh-huh.
about about how it's a daily practice. I do that daily, going back to like my traditional, upbringing is every morning we go out, we always say "Yat e bine," which means like good morning or you're welcoming the day.
Yeah.
And you go through and you basically just you're praying for the things you want that day, for what you want in your life. Um and I think when I cultivate gratitude, I go to a point to where I'm thinking like, yeah, thank you even to the stress that's bringing me down. Thank you for that because it's
Yeah.
mine. It doesn't belong to anybody else. That proves that I'm alive, that I'm an individual.
Man.
So
I love that.
I think like that kind of stuff, that kind of attitude I saw in Coach Nolan also.
Yeah.
Like learning to lose is like, yeah, it's yours. No one can take that away from you. And
Mm.
and it makes you who you are. You see it on, I think a translation to that would be those the t-shirts you see on the neighborhood badasses that say something like, pain is was it weakness leaving the body, or
Yeah.
diamonds cut diamonds or something like that. Like
I mean, I saw like some T-shirts and like straight out of Minnesota, you know?
yeah, yeah, that t-shirt was great. Um,
Oh man.
but yeah, I think that was a favorite moment from meeting Nolan, was to let him know that we weren't trying to make a sob story, but trying to make
Definitely.
something about someone who, yeah, as the title says, he went through the storm.
Someone who cares. I
Yeah,
mean, another really cool quote. I don't mean to, divest us into here, but I forgot who said it, but one of the players is just like, we're all left up, though. It's how you go about it after that. I was like, whoa, it's a high schooler saying that. And that stuck
yeah,
with me as well. And just, hearing everyone's perspective and the way they're articulating it and showing it after was pretty motivating.
yeah, man. It was fun to make something that I really felt I wanted to really respect the intelligence of those kids on that field. Um,
Oh, yeah.
it's easy to see them as like, oh man, they're, what do they know? They're just some like punk kids, or but they they've lived it, and it was it's a huge gift for them to give that vulnerability for us to film.
For sure. Um, so I also wanted to ask, through the storm, it was pretty successful. I mean, it got picked up by Gnarly Bay, by like Nike and NFL. What was that process like? You published it and it's gaining traction. How did it impact you as a director, as a human being, and how did you kind of navigate success after it was released?
Oh man, well, I think a lot of the journey for the film, that credit goes to a co-director, Charles Frank, and Voyager. Um, their company, you know, is, is is very well regarded in terms of the commercial space, like commercial films.
Yeah,
And Charles also he also loves nonfiction and documentary, so he gets to do these short films in addition to all of his work in the commercial space. So they had the relationships, and they've had the contacts of when the film was starting to get groundswell, and when we were out on like the second shoot, we kind of knew that this film was gonna be really special. And so that's when those conversations began on Voyager's side about connecting with Gnarly Bay and making this a co-production with them. And with Gnarly Bay's reach, being able to um get the conversations and the excitement for this project. And so when like Nike came on board, and that kind of started to make it real.
yeah.
um and then the Minnesota Vikings came into play, and we were
Wow.
invited to do like a little companion film for the Minnesota Vikings, in which we took the kids out to a game, and we filmed them like meeting some of the players,
Oh, that's awesome.
um and so that film is it's out, but it's not as like,
Yeah.
it,
It's like
it
another a byproduct
yeah,
of
yeah.
the storm.
And that was also my first, you know, jump into doing something that was more along that line of like a commercial branded
Yeah.
piece. My films always kind of lived in that little sweet spot where it's like 95% story, 5% branding, maybe
Yeah.
even 97% story, 3% branding. But to do something with the Vikings where there was certain types of, we needed to ensure we had the brands in there and all that kind of stuff. Like
Yeah.
that was cool to finally be on that kind of a project. And then when the festival circuit came around, and I'm still kind of new to that. I was kind of new to that too, but
Mhm.
my first film, um, The Trails Before Us, that had a really awesome festival run also, and I really thank the team for maximizing the opportunity to screen as many film festivals as possible, and taking what I learned there, and the contacts that I made, and the all the networking from that first film. So when
Yeah.
Through the Storm came out, it was really exciting um to share the news that, this is what I'm working on next. This is what the next film's going to be. And so when that came out, that was amazing. And
Yeah.
um yeah, then NFL Network was, they put it on broadcast
Mhm.
last November last year.
Sure.
And then I got a phone call from Charles, like I think last summer and this past summer, and he's like, we got nominated for an Emmy.
Nice.
And that was unreal. And
Yeah.
so just how it keeps, you know I did not anticipate this film to have the reception and the impact it did. But above all, like the most exciting part was when it showed in Minnesota. I unfortunately was not able to make it to the showing. Charles was,
Dang.
um, but to hear that the community of Red Lake showed up to see the film, and
Oh, they were
hopefully,
there?
yeah, and
Awesome.
they saw the screening in Minnesota, so
Oh, nice.
that was awesome to hear that they were able to see the film, and that it was received positively. So that was
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, that was what got to go to an NFL game too, which seems real nice.
Yeah, the feeling the field was pretty unreal.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I bet.
Yeah, yeah, that was pretty nuts.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, some like it's moments like that where it's like, man, this is kind of so cool that this kind of work, like being in this kind of work is so uncertain, so like tumultuous, and there's like hills and valleys, but there's also moments when you're standing on the field and at the Viking Stadium, like, wow, this is kind of what, like, I would not be doing this if I was this kind of work. And same
Yeah.
with like even being in the home of Micah, the Micah, one of the main characters in the story, like being at his family's house, and
Oh
we're
yeah.
sharing a meal with them, and it's like this. I would not be in this kind of work. Like I don't know. I would not be here if I was not in this kind of work. Like just having a home cooked meal with somebody in their house, and it's cool. I think that's what I really love about being in nonfiction, is just the places you end up.
Yeah. I mean, Fritz, I love the trajectory you're going towards, and definitely what you're saying too. Like this career is so versatile; it can take you to so many different places, so many nooks and corners, so many ups and downs, and it's up to you as a filmmaker to navigate it with truth and um, staying aligned with your values and your morals. And I really want to thank you for coming on, Fritz. I don't know if there's any last words you want to say to our audience before we wrap up.
Yeah. I think when the first question you asked me about, you know, challenges are just the universe's way of asking if it's really what you want. I think in this field, like it's so easy to get lost in like, you know, cruising on Instagram and just being like, oh man, everyone's doing such cool stuff, like why am I not doing that yet? Or, I'm not doing enough. Or there's a lot of like self-criticism that's easy to get lost in. Um, but like, you know, I didn't realize I wanted to be a filmmaker. I didn't start taking filmmaking seriously until I was like in my early 30s.
Mm.
And so much can change in such a small amount of time. And I think what was really important to me was just to remind myself that like my lane is my own. I'm on my own path and everybody's on their own path.
Yeah,
And and some people have equipment, but maybe they don't, maybe they're still trying to figure out their vision or what makes their their style so, you know, um, unique to their own. And some people don't have equipment, but they have that vision. But when you finally, you know, get it through your head that this is not a field you should be going in alone,
yeah,
it's definitely really important to buddy up. And I think when I first got into this career, I thought like I needed to be a jack of all trades. Like, oh, I need to know how to like light. I need to know how to edit. I need to know how to like. I need to have my own camera. All that stuff. Like, I feel like that kind of made me feel as if I was inadequate in the fields, and
sure.
so I eventually just dropped all that and just decided like I'm just gonna direct,
Yeah,
and um and in the end, like, you meet people who are just really passionate about being an AC and like they're the best AC you'll ever work with. And they know lenses inside out. They're totally
yeah.
gear geeks. Like everybody has like their own like
I've met a
strengths.
few of
And
those. Yep.
yeah. So I think that's something I would really would want to, to give that reassurance of like, we're all on our own path. We're all trying to figure it out. And
Yeah, you are where you
uh,
are for a reason.
yeah, and things have a very special way of just kind of constantly unfolding.
Okay. Fritz, I can't thank you enough for your time and for your insight. I really do wish you the best of luck in what comes next. And honestly, dude, I'm hoping for a part two. There's way more I want to touch on.
Sure, man. I'm excited that there's gonna be a new film coming out that I'm working on that should be out like early next year, I think. So that's gonna be cool to send to you when it comes out.
Yeah, please do. Maybe we could like have another conversation when part two comes out, and you could kind of tease it a little bit, or when it's fresh, in the like film festival cycle.
Totally. All right. Thanks, Michael.
I got you, Fritz. Take care, man.
All right. Yeah, take care. See ya.